I was born in Nashville, Tennessee. My uncle and dad were both boxers, and so boxing was a big part of my life growing up, watching the fights every single week. But I started wrestling, and I started competing heavily in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Got a scholarship to wrestle in college, and at 18, was able to go to these different mixed martial arts events.
Head play, very impressive.
I was doing professional fights, traveling across the country, but I was thinking about going down more of a training route. And so I opened my martial arts gym, and in 5 years, I had one of the largest MMA schools in the country. It's my clothing line. We were the largest manufacturer of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu martial arts uniforms. I had one of the highest rated non-syndicated sports show in the country, and everything was going extremely well.
Here with Dustin West, got a busy day, was training hard.
One day, I was training a guy, and I threw a kick, kind of in a warm-up session, but he checked it really hard, and I tore my LCL, PCL, and meniscus. And so I was taking the pain medication for a couple years, and when I went to stop, I went through withdrawal. And the therapist said, America's behind the times when it comes to opiate withdrawal. Google ibogaine. It supposedly stopped 100% of opiate withdrawals, but it was illegal in the United States, but it was available in Mexico. And so I went to Mexico City. I did ibogaine there. I was home 72 hours later, never had a craving, never had a withdrawal. And I thought to myself, well, what else is out there? My mom has a rare form of rheumatoid arthritis. And she broke her back, and she got tuberculosis, multiple staph infections, all due to the side effects of the medication. And I had read about a study called Coley's Toxins for rheumatoid arthritis, and it was from 1923 from a doctor named William Coley. Coley's causes a fever. Basically, after the fever was done, people would have a relief in their symptoms. You know, what we do currently for autoimmune diseases is we suppress the immune system, and this stimulates the immune system. And so I started looking to see if anybody had Coley's toxins. And there was a hospital in Mexico that had it, but it had closed 2 years before. I knew my mom was sick, and I wanted to find answers for her, and I wanted ibogaine, that to become mainstream one day. And it sounds crazy, but my two partners and I, we purchased the hospital, hired back the original staff with the mission to try to help people. But our first patient was my mom. She came in, she was in a wheelchair. After 3 weeks, she was in remission. All of her joint pain was gone. It was like a miracle. In 2021, we launched our stem cell program. My friend Eddie Bravo came down, and he had a labrum tear in his shoulder. We injected the tear, and 4 or 5 months later, he called and said, Ed, this thing is, he's like, it's unbelievable how good I'm feeling. Joe Rogan did an interview with Eddie Bravo on the podcast. He mentions us a lot.
You know, I got the stem cells in my shoulder.
We should let everybody know this is the place that's in Tijuana. It's run by Scotty Nelson, Ed Clay. My friend got serious stem cells down in Tijuana where they could do wild. Did you go to the place in Tijuana?
Yeah.
Ed Clay's place?
Yeah.
Shout out to Ed Clay.
Yeah.
And the hospital started blowing up. It was a huge change for the hospital, but there was definitely pushback from conventional circle. It was, oh, that stuff doesn't work. They're just taking advantage of people. That's quackery down in Mexico. But the American health system is absolutely broken. It lacks compassion and common sense. It treats patients like a number. Seeing my mom get better and other patients get better, I knew we were on the right path. You know, people know us for stem cells, but stem cells is like, it's very simple science to us. Our capabilities is really the future of medicine. If you just cut all that red tape, these geniuses do what they do. We could cure 2/3 of solid tumor cancers in the next 7 years. I truly believe that.
Well, it's my absolute pleasure right now to be joined by Ed Clay. Ed, thanks for coming in. We've been wanting to do this for some time.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
I ran into you a bunch as I was, we were running around during the election and around Robert Kennedy Jr., and you were very supportive of MAHA and helping make a lot of things happen there. But just getting back, I mean, I just think about my story. Like, I never would have planned on being here. And what a crazy journey, I mean, people must ask you all the time, how did you get into this?
Yeah.
Did those moves feel, were they work? Were they orchestrated? Did you feel guided? Like, how did you come into this, to go from MMA, you're running your own training facility, and then decide to get into building a hospital? I mean, that's a pretty big jump.
It's a big jump. My mom was sick, and I have a big faith in God, and just kind of leaned on Him during the pressure. That's what got me through it. But we needed answers for her, and there were no answers in the U.S. And so it was like, what can we do? And when I read the study on Coley's toxins, it made sense to me. They'd been suppressing her immune system. The side effects that she was getting were unbearable, and we didn't have any more options. So found Coley's toxins. You know, the hospital had closed a couple years before in Mexico.
Yeah.
And we just figured it out, bought it.
Well, how did you talk the we into it, right? I mean, I think that's a big thing too, right? There's one thing of having a dream, but then enrolling other people around you into that, because it was your mom, not theirs.
Yes.
Were those partners from just earlier? Were they the same partners you had at your gym?
No, not the same partner. Scott Nelson, he's been one of my best friends for 30 years.
Okay.
He owned an MMA company called OTM.
Okay.
And it's like his mom too. He's very close to my mom.
Okay.
And then Dedrick Puri, he did work with me at the gym. But showed him the idea. We were all kind of single at the time, and we're like, I think we can. Let's just do it.
Let's just change the world.
It made sense. I remember we were trying to get people to invest with us, and I couldn't understand why people didn't want to invest. Now 11 years later, I'm like, I would never invest in something like that. There's no way. But we lived in the hospital the first 6 months because we wanted to learn everything we possibly could about a hospital. And just worked really hard, 7 days a week. It was wake up. We lived together after we moved out of the hospital. Wake up, drink coffee together, talking about work. Get home late, have dinner together, talking about work, and it was just constant for
what
first
were the
5 years.
first steps? Because I find this fascinating, because people always ask me, what can I do? Like, or they'll say, I want to change the health systems. I'm like, well, start with a clinic or something. Like, I think we set goals sometimes that are too big and miss the steps in between. But what are those steps? The steps are, you're not a doctor, so you didn't grow up in a hospital.
Right.
None of your core team is. So you go in. So are there already doctors there that you're just like, all right, show us how this whole thing works? Like, what was the process?
Yeah, we hired back the original staff that was running the hospital before.
Okay.
And then hired hospital administrators and just people that had experience with it.
But all in Mexico.
All in Mexico.
All speaking Spanish, or they speak English?
They speak English as well.
Okay,
yeah.
good. That helps.
And we just grinded it out. Hired good people, hired maybe some bad people too that we had to go through. But it was just this faith that we were going to make it work. I remember seeing the first tumor I saw shrink with Coley's toxins injected intratumorally, and it was undeniable. It's one thing in a scan where you just see it on a screen, but when you see this guy had a tumor coming out of his neck, and within 3 weeks we got it to go down probably 2/3, on something that's not supposed to work, that's when I just knew. And that was immunotherapy. Coley's toxins, if you look in the textbooks, it's considered the first immunotherapy for cancer. And so from there...
But they ditched it. It was one of what happened to it?
Yeah, so, Dr. Coley, from 1891 to 1936, had a higher success rate treating many cancers than we did up until about 2018, when the checkpoint inhibitor immunotherapies really got popular. That's when they won the Nobel Prize for cancer. But, you figure from the 50s to 2015, it was all chemotherapy and radiation.
Yeah.
And, the immunologist, Franco Marincola, is our chief scientific officer. He was the former chief of infectious disease and immunogenetics for the NIH. And he's an immunologist. And he said, what I did 20 years ago wasn't considered real science. So here's this great scientist that believed in immunotherapy for cancer, but even back then, 20 years ago, it was like, oh, this will never work. The immune system can really never have that effect. And Franco saw one patient, I believe it was in the late 80s, maybe the early 90s, that was cured of melanoma with IL-2. And IL-2 is very toxic, but he knew that if he could figure out the mechanisms that caused that person to be cured, that we could eventually one day cure cancer. So he's stuck with it. Him and Steve Rosenberg, who's still at the NCI, they've been really pioneers of this immunotherapy for cancer movement, and a lot of others. But they knew that it was possible, and I think we're getting science to the point now where we can really pinpoint. And I do think that we're fairly close to a cure for solid tumor cancers.
So you have a former NIH scientist expert who, in order to continue his work, really has to be doing that in Mexico. So what is it? Because I remember when I first started hearing about this a few years ago, like, oh, I'm getting my teeth done down in Mexico, or I'm getting this. And I just thought it was just a cheaper way to do things. Then I started meeting people that were having life-changing procedures done in Mexico and other, like Switzerland. They leave the country, though. Sure. I can't get this here. So, why? Why is this immunotherapy? Why is Coley's toxins? Why is the NIH not working with it right now? Because we're under this impression America wants to be the leader. We want to be the best of the best at everything we do. We certainly have the most funding. We are on top of science and medicines. That's what HHS is, CDC, FDA. What is it about it that is not promoting the advancement of science? We grew up in a country like we landed on the moon. Yeah. There's always the moon shot. Why are we missing the moon shot?
Well, Franco can work for whoever he wants. Okay, yeah. So we have a lab in Boston and Nashville. We have, I think right now, 16 full-time PhDs, Harvard, Yale, MIT education PhDs. And Franco loves the model of translational medicine. He founded the Journal of Translational Medicine, which is from bench to bedside and back from bedside to bench. The bench of the scientist to the bedside of the patient. And so the model that we've created in Mexico, TAM Center, on the 6th floor we have the scientists and doctors working on the same floor together next to one of the best labs in the world. I will say I think we have the best lab in the world for diagnosing cancer. Wow. Full clinical laboratories, genomics, proteomics, digital pathology. We have cellular manufacturing, all on the same floor that the scientists and doctors work on. So we can make quick discoveries, we can make quick changes, we can find out what's going on in the lab, which is really the best thing for the patient. I think modern healthcare treats patients like a number instead of an individual. And we really focus on the individual, and we make individualized treatments. We're heavy on science. People, 10 years ago could have said, oh, that's alternative, that's not real science. Right. Now they can't knock our science. We can have bioethical debates, which is reasonable, but...
what does that mean? What is a bioethical debate? What do you mean by that?
Well, how the clinical trials are run is, I don't think the way that the clinical trial model is run right now is ethical. So our model is set up to where, okay, it takes 5 to 7 years in the United States to get to a phase 1 safety trial with the FDA, and $30 to $50 million on average. We can do that in as little as 6 months for less than $1 million. So we have our biotech company where we're developing new therapeutics, and we can get them into humans quickly, see how well they work. If they work well, we keep them going. If they don't, we don't keep using them. Yeah. And so the model, that is a more ethical model to me. I mean, why should a patient wait 10 to 15 years when they don't have 10 to 15 months? It doesn't make any sense to me why we keep these patients waiting. And now, with the genomics and the multi-omics, the different omics that you can put together with patient samples, we can really dig in to targeted treatments. I mean, we do what's called whole exome sequencing on a tumor, RNA sequencing, HLA typing, and then we make predictions off of that with our bioinformatics team on the top 20 neoantigens that are found on the tumor but not in healthy cells, and then we make targeted peptides to them. But we can only do that by having the scientific equipment and the great scientists that can make those predictions and understand that. And so it's really a more logical, to me, ethical approach. I don't think patients should have to wait. Conventional science might say that, we need to stick to this old, archaic process of clinical trials that doesn't put the patient first, that uses patients as a number. And I don't think that is correct.
Would people then, the argument would be, let me push on the other side though, is that you're using patients as an experiment, that they're, your advancement, but do they know that they're in a trial space, that is what they're doing there, that they're taking a risk? We don't have a long-term safety profile. I mean, obviously,
Sure.
You're talking about, this is something that's really common in America with right to try. You're talking about patients that are dying of a cancer or AIDS or whatever, ailment, and we were denying them access to a trial drug that they wanted to try, and they're like, I'm going to be dead by the time you determine that product is safe.
Yeah, I think we try to change informed consent to informed decision making. I think we go further than normal informed consent, where we partner with the patient on all of their options. We give them lists of clinical trials all over the world. We give them on and off label approved medications. So we really partner with the patient to have the best knowledge that they can to make a decision themselves. We believe patients are smart enough to make decisions if given all of the information.
Yeah.
And so I understand that, and someone could abuse it, by the way. There are people who abuse that and take advantage of people. That is not what we do. We are, very high science, very high ethics, and we take it very seriously. We just don't agree with the current thought process. The current thought process, to me, I think it's well-intended, and a lot of people try to bash them. I'm not one that bashes them. I think it's well-intended, but I think it's old, and we need new ideas based on where science is today.
Well, and science is moving faster. Always is moving faster. I said at the beginning of the show when I was on the doctors, all the guys that were really pushing the envelope and working miracles. I got to see the best of the best. And that was the cool thing about that show, was I could just reach out and say, hey, you've got a new surgery, whatever. Would you like to present it for free? I've got someone that has that issue. They need help. And we would just make them famous on the show. But the most miraculous things I witnessed while doing that show, every single time, those practitioners or those geniuses were completely under attack here in America, mostly by their peers that just didn't want to change, didn't want to move. And I think that, for my audience, I'm fighting for informed consent. I call my nonprofit Informed Consent Action Network, but really in the vaccine space, because what's ironic is how much red tape there is for a product like you want to test to get through the gauntlet here in America, hundreds of millions of dollars, years and years of studies. But when it comes to a product given to a perfectly healthy child, they're not even doing what you're doing. There's just, we're going to assume safety, doesn't make an antigen, doesn't create an antibody, boom, it's on the market, 5-day safety trial for hepatitis B. Oh, you know what? Let's put it in day 1-old babies. Even though we mostly only tested on adults and kids, older kids, let's get in day 1-old babies. So I'm hesitant in this space, which is the issue I'm dealing with. Is I believe we're being poisoned by these products because they never went through a safety trial. But I will also say, when I'm in debates, a cancer patient is different. It's a different risk profile, right? I'm dying. I am willing to take the risk. We should be really careful with risks we take of perfectly healthy kids, and we are giving them less safety and attention than we are for drugs for people that are in serious circumstances. So let's get to, your investigations and your studies. A lot of people are going to Mexico and clinics like yours or, hospitals like yours because you are doing cutting edge things. Some of them old, some of them like Coley's toxins. But there's this idea that pharma is hiding the cancer cure, right? That, if they found the cure, I think I picture it like Raiders of the Lost Ark. You finally find the Ark, Merck buys it, and then they go down into a basement somewhere and they hide it away so that no one ever sees it. Is that what's happening with cancer in your opinion?
I don't personally believe that. We've tried every possible alternative type treatment for patients over the last 10 years.
Even the ones that doctors apparently have died for, GC-MAF being.
Yes.
Have you tried GC-MAF?
Yes, we have. Yes,
okay.
Laetrile, everything. And so if there was a hidden cure for cancer, we would have found it.
You're looking for it.
It's my passion.
Right.
I would love to be able to tell the world this is it, but there's no magic bullet to cancer. The reality is, in the alternative field, which I don't necessarily consider as alternative anymore, but alternative and conventional, nobody has a great answer for stage 4 metastatic cancer. And you have both sides throwing stones. All the while, patients are dying and kind of stuck in the middle of this throwing stones fight. We are seeing incredible gains with immunotherapy for cancer. The checkpoint inhibitors have changed the game. But we have, a long way to go. But I do think we're close with all of the new diagnostic technologies. I mean, if you can pinpoint certain things within the cancer, if we can figure out what creates an immune response to cancer. We work on the cancer dark matter, which is the non-coding region of the cancer. We work on what's called viral mimicry right now, where we're trying to mimic a virus in the tumor to create an immune response, to trick the immune system to thinking that the tumor is a virus. I think that we're making really, really good gains, and we have really smart people working with us. But I talked to Franco, for instance, and Franco says, yeah, if I had 7 years and unlimited funds and I could just get all the red tape out of the way, he really believes that we could cure 2/3 of solid tumor cancers in that 5 to 7 year period. And so my job, as I see it, is to make it as easy as possible for him. We have a very favorable regulatory environment in Mexico. We have a good relationship with the COFEPRIS. We have all of the licensing set up to where we can do these faster trials, phase 0 trials, really, and translate these discoveries very fast. And so my job really is to help Franco have what he needs with as little friction as possible, so we can make that vision, come true.
What's some of the most exciting advancements you've had?
Well, I think on the cancer side, we went through thousands of tumor cell lines in silico, so in computerized model, and we picked the top 10 most immunogenic, meaning the immune system could see that tumor cell line the most. And then from that 10, we brought those 10 in the lab and tested them in the lab to find the most immunogenic tumor cell line. Then we knocked down genes in different tumor cell lines to see what gene knockdown caused the most immunogenic cell death. Same process in silico, same process in the lab, and then we're knocking down, we're using the most immunogenic gene knockdown in the most immunogenic tumor cell line, and we've developed a secretome from that, which is like a super adjuvant for cancer. And I'm very excited about that. From there, same process, we're also doing extracellular vesicles or exosomes out of those as well, and combining that with our dendritic cell vaccine, which is another pretty advanced vaccine. So those three things in combination, I think, are really cool. We also
and these are vaccines that are essentially trying to inspire the immune system to attack the cancer that's in your body, like in finding some part of that cancer, I guess, basically put like you would a virus, growing it, putting it inside it, and then saying, here's a way that the immune system can recognize and go, oh, that's my enemy, and then attacks the cancer.
Exactly.
Which it should have been. I mean, really, cancer is supposed to be being attacked by our immune system, correct? I mean, isn't that...
Yes.
I mean, I don't have cancer right now, even though I have cancer cells, because I have an immune system that is perpetually fighting and attacking cancer.
Yes, we have cancer going through us all the time, and cancer grows kind of secretly in the immune system. The immune system doesn't see it. If you can make the immune system see cancer, it will attack it and kill it. The hard part is getting it to see that, and that's our focus. How do we get the immune system to see the cancer, and then how do we create a death in the cell that creates the immune system to see it even more? So we do something called cryoablation, where we'll freeze a tumor. We'll inject it with different adjuvants. So let's say you have a tumor in the lung, with the goal from the cryo there to get a tumor in the leg to go away, called the abscopal effect. So that's technically a vaccine inside the person's own body. We use the patient's own tumors many times, though. So it's autologous therapy in those cases.
Super interesting. Any patents? Do you try to apply for patents coming out of Mexico?
Oh, yeah.
Those American patents? Like, how does that process work?
Yeah, they're American. I mean, we have our biotech in Boston and Nashville.
You have other clinics, right?
And we have a new one for the secretome and the EV product. We have something called a MAP cell coming out, which is a new stem cell that we're really excited about. There's something called a Muse cell, and
Muse?
Yeah, MUSE.
Okay.
And there's a doctor out of Japan that's done some really good work on that. And we took a lot of what she had learned and made it even better. So they had, at least from what we could understand, scalability problems, and really, how do you scale what they do? Well, we've figured that out and found other markers in the stem cells that they didn't know about that might even make that cell drive even better. And we're very excited about the MAP cell. So.
Wow, super. So what's your recommendation to someone that's like, do I want to go to a clinic like TAM? Do I want to go? Like, what's a part of the decision making? Obviously, I'm going to get conventional here. Everyone's getting the same thing in America. It's standardized. But when we're going to Mexico, why does someone make that choice?
Well, I think for herniated disc, for instance, for stem cells, we are...
herniated discs?
Yes, we're the best at that. We do about 20 herniated disc procedures a week, and we're about to publish over 500 patient study showing the success of that. But I would go to Mexico all day long if I had a herniated disc. Before surgeries of knees, shoulders, etc., we're great at growing back labrums. We're great at knee injuries. And then for cancer, for diagnostics, like if you want to get as much information as you possibly can about your cancer, you would want to come to us because we can get that information. And that's not part of the standard of care in the U.S. And then you can take that information and potentially use it in the U.S. with your oncologist because they might have extra targets with targeted approved medications to attack. Or we can do some customized treatments, in Mexico as well. So, we work with a lot with oncologists in the U.S. We don't see them as like opposition or anything like that. And, we really want to build a bridge. I always say build bridges, not walls. Like, how do we work with other groups? And because ultimately the patient does better when people are working together and they're not, being told, oh, you can't trust them or this or that, or, conventional is all bad. I don't think most oncologists are bad. I mean, oncologists, they have one of the toughest jobs. I mean, can you imagine? They have metastatic cancer patients coming in that have a small chance possibly of surviving, and they're seeing that day in and day out. So a lot of them seem cold, but no telling what they're going through emotionally inside. And I think, we should probably give them a little grace. But, we want to work with the other side. We want to, basically give the patient the best chance for recovery of anything that we're working with.
Where's the whole stem cell world at? I actually, I was telling you before the show, I had an opportunity because I broke some ribs skiing. I think it's like 6 weeks ago now. I got sent red lights. I'm doing really well. I think I healed pretty quickly. But I was just about to, do I get a stem cell injection? I know they're saving. I mean, I've heard the miracle statements, but I'm just asking myself, how many stem cells? Is there too many stem cells in a body? That's my number one question. And anyone asking, everyone's like, oh, I have a product that increases your stem cells. This increases your stem cells. It's all about stem cells. But I'm a skeptic. I think people that watch this show know I'm on all sides. I'm always going to ask the question.
Sure.
What do we know about stem cells now? Are there too many stem cells? Is there injecting the wrong places? Does anyone care?
Yeah. Well, I'm a skeptic too, by the way, on a lot of what's being advertised as stem cells. I've seen the supplements. I don't know anything about that. So I don't know how that works, if it's true or not. Sounds almost too good to be true. But, I mean, maybe. Some people, they got some peer-reviewed literature we could read. But there are meta-analyses showing what the minimum effective dose of specific stem cell treatments are. And so I could show you the meta-analysis, and maybe for your shoulder or your rib, we could go based off of the literature. There's different types of stem cells. There's, bone marrow-derived, adipose-derived, umbilical cord-derived, mesenchymal stem cells, and you can choose which one you want. We have adipose and umbilical cord derived.
Okay.
We grow ours in hypoxia. So most people grow theirs in what's called a normoxic environment. It's at like 20% oxygen, and it's a very simple cell growing process. We grow ours at 5% oxygen because that's the oxygen level inside most of the places in your body. Going into a disc, for instance, you want to have a cell that's grown in low oxygen that's similar to where it's being injected into.
Interesting.
Yeah. But we did a study recently where we ordered 5 or 6 of the top Wharton jelly products in the U.S. because people are claiming Wharton jelly, minimally manipulated Wharton jelly, is a stem cell. And they're marketing it as stem cells. And there were virtually no stem cells in those products. We published this in the Journal of Translational Medicine. And between 81 and 100% of those cells were dead. So, now does that say that Wharton jelly, you can't get stem cells and plate them and grow them? No. That would be something similar to what we do. But the Wharton jelly being marketed in America, most of it is not actually a stem cell product. So, I could point you to literature and let you make an informed decision on kind of what's best for you based on the science.
I think you've briefly probably met Bobby Kennedy, but when you think about, I think we have a very, porous group now, open to, I got to sit in some of the conversations. I know Marty McCary wants to look at new technology. He wants to fast track things that are working. Yeah. Dr. Oz obviously spent his life doing shows like this. He had his own show celebrating things that were working. I know Bobby, but what would be, what would you say to them? What do you think needs to happen inside the U.S. government agencies to put America back on top of medical and science research? What has to happen?
Well, I think for stem cells, for instance, let these companies jump to phase 3 and let's do a big study, and maybe have the NIH help fund, those studies. Because the idea that a stem cell that is a legitimate biotech company that's been doing it has to go through phase 1 and phase 2 and wait 5 to 7 to 10 years to get the trial done is pretty ridiculous when we know the safety and we know that it has signals of efficacy.
Yeah.
For healthcare overall, especially with diseases like cancer or something that's considered terminal, I think we need early access, and I think they're doing a pretty good job with that right now. Mm-hmm. But they really need to figure out how to lower the cost across the board. So, for instance, if we were to go into a phase 3, we'd probably have to sell to Big Pharma because we can't fund the 100 million, 500 million, however much it is, type study. And so there's got to be ways kind of around that. We've solved the phase 1 problem with our model in Mexico. It was based to bypass the broken system in the U.S., where we can do trials in Mexico, give the U.S. FDA our data, hope that they take it and let us jump to phase 2 or phase 3. So we don't waste that first 5 to 7 years. Mm-hmm. So that's one way to do it. But they really need to figure out a way to lower the cost of that phase 3 trial, because we've never taken an outside investor. There's still just 3 of us.
Wow.
And we've done it intentionally because we don't want to be beholden to big pharma or some corporate interest. Now, it's really hard. You can imagine.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do, but that's what we've tried to do. We will hold off as long as we can, but maybe one day we have to do it. But I wish that weren't the case, and I wish it could be more reasonable to get a drug through the phase 3 process, especially when we see, like for instance with our disc injections, how well it's working.
One of the interesting conversations I had was with Jim O'Neill, who I don't know what happened to him inside of the government. He was there for a little while, but he was really caught up in the fact that FDA changed its mandate. It was supposed to just be focused on safety, and then let efficacy be decided by doctors, patients, and all that. Very interesting. If we return to that, the idea though being, and I see more and more of this, whether or not returning to just safety is the way to go, but what he pointed out to me was that efficacy was changed by pharma. They wanted, as soon as they made FDA responsible for efficacy, that's the $100 million trials. That's where you just make everything way too expensive to have any competitors. They'll complain about the red tape, but as you just said, only big pharma can afford it. And so it keeps all competition out. And it also sort of instantly turns FDA into a promoting body, because now it's giving you this seal of approval and you're off and running. There's an argument to say, what if we took that away from them? Let's get back to efficacy being decided by, results. Hospitals can show the results. Patients can go where they're seeing results. All you have to do is prove that this product's safe and, relatively safe. But that idea, making it cheaper, I think pharma is behind making those things really expensive. They want you to have to go through these double-blind, studies that they'll skip them whenever they can, but they want you to have to go through it because then you can't compete. We get no new ideas. It slows the entire thing down.
Yeah, well, if the government could do like a lot of the CRO work, the clinical research organization work, and do the testing for some of these biotechs. I mean, for instance, we had acquired a team from Boston. What they were spending $800,000 or so a month on, we're spending about $60,000 a month because we fully vertically integrated. So we do all of our tests. We do everything in-house.
Yeah.
But, most biotechs don't, nobody else really has that. That was our model. But if the NIH or NCI could do testing for these trials, it would dramatically lower the cost. The cost for the testing when they send out the samples, the markup is outrageous.
Yeah.
And so that really hurts smaller biotechs from being able to really progress their research because everything costs so much. But it really doesn't cost that much when you do it in-house. You have to have a certain amount of sample sizes. So if you run a flow cell on a sequencer, you need to make sure that flow cell is full because you're going to spend, whether you have one sample or 50 samples, the same amount.
Wow.
But if you can really solve those problems and understand the math and the samples for the clinical trials, you can drop the cost tremendously. That's what we built, within our own system. But we're kind of the only ones, at least that I know, that are like that. But that's what the model needs to do is, to lower the cost. Use common sense. We use first principles on everything. Like we question every way something is done. If it's just the way it's done, why?
Yeah.
Why? And, I think that is a way to get the cost down a lot. Doing just safety trials with the FDA, it's an interesting idea. I don't know how insurance would pay for these things afterwards, if we don't know if they work. I'm sure he's thought about that, so I'd be interested to see what he has to say about it. But, there's a lot of good ideas to do this, but people have to be open to it, and we've got to be open to breaking everything down to first principle. And that's where you can really find the savings in the healthcare.
If people are interested that are watching this, they have a cancer or an issue, where's the best way? Website? Where's all of your information? Yeah, you can go to thetamcenter.com for the degenerative disease or cancer side, cpistemcells.com on the stem cell side, musculoskeletal, and we'll have our TAM Global and TAM Bioscience website up soon. All right, very cool. Look, I know part of your story when we were interviewing you was you got arrested and actually went to jail right before your life made this transition. Can we talk about that on Off the Record, maybe how that affected your life?
Sure, let's do it.
And motivated you? Okay, awesome. Well, look, if you want to know a little bit more about TAM, here's an incredible video that shows you what they got going on.
Approximately 600,000 people die every year in the United States of cancer. 700,000 people die of heart disease. And chronic disease is an epidemic of monumental scale.
There's too many people that are dying because they don't have the access they need to the leading edge scientists, to the advanced diagnostics, and the next generation therapeutics.
It sounds dramatic, but I was planning my funeral.
I felt like you're shooting myself in the head.
My oncologist at Dana-Farber Cancer Center said no one's lived longer than 3 years.
I can't tell you how I'm going to live, but I have a choice of how I'm going to die.
I do believe that an individual has the right to at least make an informed decision about what is their best option for anything in life, including treatment of their own terminal disease.
As it stands right now, it could take anywhere from 10 to 15 years for patients to get access to certain treatment.
Why should a patient wait 10 to 15 years when they don't even have 10 to 15 months?
I think it's important for the world to understand TAM is trying to seed and then help propagate a new model.
It's going to have a ripple effect.
The idea of TAM Center started with a question. What if we could put some of the leading scientists in the world, the manufacturers, the inventors, the creators of these leading edge therapeutics and diagnostics into one location working side by side with medical doctors, so their breakthroughs aren't so far away from the clinic and the patient. What if we could have the scientists working directly with the doctor, solving these complex problems in a regulatory environment that favored the patient's outcome over the red tape?
We are recruiting the best scientists. We're recruiting the best doctors.
We have Franco Marincola, who is the Chief of Infectious Disease and Immunogenetics for the National Institutes of Health. He is the founder and editor-in-chief of the Journal of Translational Medicine, and he's the co-editor of one of the main textbooks that oncologists use for immunotherapy for cancer.
The TAM leadership are revolutionizing beyond the boundaries, the healthcare landscape.
We have Ali Asadi as our new Chief Innovation Officer. He invented the very first proteomic product using next-generation sequencing. You can get the best genomic data, you can get the best proteomic data, you can get the best methylation data, but we're the first to combine it in a true multi-omic approach.
Multiomics is the comprehensive tools that look at human health at different angles.
They're expanding the different options that a physician has to treat the patient.
We want to help the people that nobody else is willing to help. We want to go that extra mile to do whatever it takes when everybody else has given up.
We are at the intersection of revolution. The patients are demanding.
It's making the ultimate difference of saving lives. There's nothing bigger than that.